everyone, Jason here, digital marketing consultant, and in this Google Analytics tutorial, we're going to go A to Z and everything in between to getting Google Analytics set up on your website, configured correctly, and of course how to read all of that sweet data so you can improve your traffic and conversions. So make sure you go ahead and check out the links in the description. There is a comprehensive table of contents, so you can skip around the video to get your specific questions answered, or if you've already covered some of the more basic steps that we'll be covering in the beginning of this tutorial, as well as links to other comprehensive tutorials on how to set up Facebook ads, Google ads, and YouTube ads. And if you have any questions along the way, go ahead and drop them in the comment section below. I read and reply to every single one. And with that, here's a quick overview and snapshot of what we're going to be covering in this specific tutorial. Let's go ahead, jump onto my screen, and I'll walk you through the entire process. And the first step to getting up and running with Google Analytics and beginning your process of mastery is understanding a few key success factors. And the first one is understanding what Google Analytics is designed to do, because it's really only designed to do two things. Number one, track how people get to your website, and number two, track what they do on your website. That's it. In the Analyze section, we'll go over the 3 key questions that you need to ask to improve your traffic and conversions. But just keep this in mind as we go through this tutorial that really analytics is nothing more than a tracking tool. It's a very powerful one, but all it is tracking. So the other key to success here is actually a big warning, and that is analytics is not retroactive. Unlike some other parts of entrepreneurship or digital marketing, analytics is not something where you ready, fire, aim, right? This is something where you need to get it done right the first time. There are no redos, there's no Command Z, there's no Control Z. We have to get it right the first time. That's why we're meticulously going to go through the first 4 steps. And step number 5, analyze. That's where we start to have some fun and you can play around with things without worrying about breaking anything. And this leads me into the 3rd key to success, and this is why we need to understand how analytics works, because analytics isn't just collecting all the traffic and then doing calculations and showing you what goes on. What goes on is analytics looks at the traffic, it calculates it, and then it spits out the data. And that calculation phase is what we're going to go over in steps 2 through 4 in terms of setting your goals, configuring things properly, and UTM parameters. So whatever happens in that gray box, if something is messed up in our configurations or settings or tracking parameters, then the data is going to be corrupted. It's going to be bad. We're not going to be able to go back and see the squeaky clean traffic data, which is why when we go through configurations, I'm going to show you how to make sure that even if you do mess up, you're going to have a backup of everything. And this is, I think, one of the biggest misconceptions about Google Analytics is that you can't go back and fix it. So I really encourage you to go through this entire tutorial. I know it's long, timestamp table of contents in the description to make sure that you get everything right the first time. So with that, we're ready to actually install the code onto our site. So I'm going to go through how to set up a new account. I'm going to go through a couple of different WordPress plugins, and I'll also go through how to add it to Shopify. So let's go on over to Google Analytics. So if you haven't set up an account yet, you'll just go ahead, search Google Analytics. You'll get to this page and you'll be able to click Start for free. And then you'll be presented with a page like this. You can go ahead and click sign up. Make sure you're signed in with the Google account that you want to be using. So if you already have a Google account that's connected to other advertising platforms, use that account. It's going to save you a lot of headache as we go through this. And you'll go ahead and all you need to do is give your account a name. So this is going to be your organization name. We'll get a little more into this in a second. And then give your website a name. This is just going to be one website. You can always go back and add more. And then go ahead and enter your website URL. Make sure you can choose your industry here. These are super broad, but these just help with benchmarking metrics. And it's not really all that important. And then we'll go ahead and just choose whatever time zone you're in, and you'll click Get Tracking ID. Once you've clicked that, you should be presented with a page that looks something like this, or in some rare cases, you'll actually be redirected to the home page for some reason. But in any case, we're going to click on Admin, and we're going to come into here, and we're going to look at our property. We're going to make sure we're choosing the right property. If you just set up an account, you're not going to have more than one property here. And we're going to click on JS tracking info, and then tracking code. And this is the information we need to install our tracking code. So however you're getting to this page, this is the information we need. We need the tracking ID, and then we need the global site tag. Now, you can install Google Analytics using something called Google Tag Manager. That would take way too long for for this tutorial, but there's a link in the cards and description on how to use Google Tag Manager to actually manage all of your tracking codes. I highly recommend using that, but for now we're going to go through the basic installation using just the Google Analytics code. And depending upon your page builder, you might just only have to drop in your tracking ID as with Shopify, but we'll go through some other examples here. So the first thing we're going to want to do is go ahead and copy this code, and this code needs to go in the head part of our website. Now don't worry, we don't need to know any HTML. I'm going to go through a couple of examples. I don't know which page builder you're using, but all of them have a pretty standardized process. So first, this is a WordPress-based example. I'm in Thrive Themes right now, and I've just gone to my theme dashboard. So I can scroll down here, and you want to look for something, either general settings or analytics and scripts. So here I'm going to go ahead and click Manage Scripts, and I'll be taken to a page where I can add new. You can see Google Tag Manager is on my site here, but if we're going to install Google Analytics, we go ahead and click Add New. We'd paste in the script, give it a name, and then we would tell our software where we want it to go. In this particular instance, we want it in the head tag. So we're going to go ahead and put before the head tag, and then we'd click Continue. Now I'll go through how to make sure that it's actually on your site correctly. So this is one example. Now here's another example where maybe you need to go into your theme options and you look again for something like analytics, scripts, tracking codes, external scripts, something of that nature. And you should have an option of putting something in the header script, the body tag, or other, right? This particular instance, Thrive Themes actually has opening of the body and the body. So what we would do is we'd go ahead and select all this, and we would paste in our Google Analytics script. I'm going to do Control Z on that one. For Optimize Press here, I went to Optimize Press dashboard. They have analytics and tracking. You can see right here, I can just drop in the head code and then click Save. Now, the process is going to be the same if you're using something like ClickFunnels or Builderall or Lead Pages or something of that nature. All of these are pretty standardized. Now, if you're doing Shopify, inside of Shopify, you're going to want to go to Online Store, Preferences. You're going to click on Scripts and Tracking. You're going to get to a page that looks like this, and then you'll be able to just drop in your UA code. So you won't actually have to put in the entire code. So if we go back to Analytics here, you would only have to copy this UA tracking code and drop it right into this box. So some page builders will be super easy because they only ask for the UA code. Now, in either case, we want to make sure that the code has been installed properly, right? So I'm going to assume that you click Save, and this is where something called Tag Assistant by Google comes in. So you should be using Google Chrome for this. You can just search Chrome Web Store, Google Tag Assistant, and you'll be able to add this to Chrome, and it gives you this nice little icon inside of your extensions bar. And once it's installed, you'll see this little icon, and you'll have to click Enable on your site. So I'll go through an example here where, let's say this was my home page, and I wanted to see if the tag was actually on my site properly. We'd click Enable, and once you've hit Enable, you'll have to refresh the page. Now I'm going to go over to my home page here that I've already refreshed the page on, and now it'll show us a list of all the tags that are on our site. And you'll see something that says it should be green, and it'll say Google Analytics. Now I'm using a blocking plugin because I don't want to be tracked, because I do this for so many clients. I don't want to screw up our clients' analytics. But what you'll see here is you will see Google Analytics, and it should be green. If it's red for any reason, then you go ahead and click on it, and it will give you all of these errors that seem to make no sense. You can just copy it, paste it into Google, and you'll find some forums that will tell you what exactly the error is. Of course, you can always drop a comment in the comment section below if this didn't work properly. And once we're all green, we are ready to dive into the next step, which is configuring Google Analytics. So you can start tracking the data you need and ignoring the data that you don't want. So here is really where it's important that you are very meticulous and take your time configuring these settings, because there is no retroactive or undos when it comes to what we're about to cover. Now, everything that we're going to work on in this particular section of this tutorial is going to be done from your admin panel. And you can reach this page anytime by going to the bottom left and clicking on the little gear icon. So I'm going to go over to Analytics. Let's say you're on your home page and you want to go into your admin settings. You can just come down here, click on admin, and the admin page will load right up, and you can do everything that we are about to talk about. So before we dive into that, I want to go into what we need to focus on and more importantly, what we don't, because there is a lot in here, right? There are a bunch of different options and really we just need to focus on the ones I've highlighted here and you can ignore the rest for the next 6, even 12 or 18 months. If anything, trying to go back and play with these other things without working one-on-one with a professional is just going to be a recipe for disaster. And I can tell you from personal experience, I've seen a lot of analytics accounts messed up because people tried to figure out or kind of jerry-rig settings in these other gray areas. So we're going to ignore everything else. We're going to 80-20 streamline this process, make sure that you're getting the information you need and not having any risk of screwing up your data, which is one of the worst things we can do inside of analytics. So we're going to start with a account structure overview. So we have our account, then we have properties, and then we have views. So I'm going to dive into my diagram here to go through what those three are. So the first very top level is account, and your account is essentially everything in your organization. It's the top level that you can go inside of analytics. Inside your account, you're going to have something called properties. Now, all of these properties are your websites. Now, it's key to note, not subdomains. We'll get to how to handle subdomains later on when we talk about views. And views are simply different ways you can view your data of your website. I think that's the simplest way we can do it. When you get into configurations, you'll see you can have a lot of different views, but we need to remember when we're going through is nothing in analytics is retroactive. So when we want to configure a view, we're always going to leave at least one view that is normal, and we'll get more into that in a bit. So that kind of covers the account, property, and view, and here's kind of where it looks like in terms of the columns of what we just went through. And so now what we want to do is talk about the important actions we're going to take at each level. So if you don't want to go through this part, you can go ahead and skip to here and we'll go right into the implementation of what we're about to talk about. So at the account view, really all we're doing at the account level is adding our co-founders and chief marketing officers. That's pretty much it. It's just user management and naming the account. Next, in the property section, what we're going to be doing is we're going to make sure that one ID is on one website, and we're going to be able to find our tracking code and connect our advertising accounts. The views is where really you're going to spend a majority of your time inside of Google Analytics playing with things. And there are a couple of view settings that we're going to go through. We're not going to go through them all because there are a lot that just frankly aren't going to be all that valuable when you're just getting started. So we're going to look at view settings. This is where we're going to be able to set up subdomain tracking. We're going to look at how to put together goals and briefly talk about filters for segmenting your data and content grouping. And now that we know what's important at each level, we're going to go ahead and jump into Google Analytics and we're going to start going through and setting up all these configurations right now. So the first one we're going to do is the account. And of course, this is where the rubber meets the road. We're going to be going through what we're going to be doing at the account level, the account settings. Now, when it comes to the account settings, you really want to protect your data. So when you're adding people, you really want to limit the number of people who have access at this level. So we're going to go in, we're at the ad settings for this particular account. Now, there are a couple things we can do. We can click on account settings and we can see our blurred out account ID here. Now, this is not the tracking code for your website. This is just your account ID for everything. Then you can go ahead and give your account a name. All of these checkboxes will be automatically checked. I'm going to go ahead and click cancel. There's really nothing to do there. User management is where you can add someone to have access to everything in your account. And we can set levels. I'll get to that in a second. And this process is the same for the account, property, and of course, views. So you have a tremendous amount of control. What I recommend doing is only your chief marketing officer, if you happen to have one, or your co-founder have access to the account, and everyone else should be on an individual property or an individual view. And that just makes sure that nobody messes anything up. So I'm going to go ahead and click on user management. You'll be able to see your account permissions. We'll come up to this blue box and click add new users. And here you'll enter the Gmail address or G Suite address of whoever you want to add. And then you have a couple options on what kinds of permissions they have inside of your account. So if you need someone to actually do work, then you need to give them edit access. Otherwise, go ahead and give them collaborate or read analyze, and that way there's no way that they can make any mistakes or mess anything up in your tracking. And that's really all we need to know at the account level. So let's go ahead, dive into the property level and take a look at what we need to do and configure at the property level. So you're going to want to go through this process for each one of your websites in your account. Now, there are three main things we want to look at. We have the tracking. I'm going to skip around here. We have the tracking code, which we already took care of. We have the property settings, which is where you can get your UA code if you need it for something else that you do in the future. It's where you define your URL and give your property a name. And both of these were pretty much taken care of when you installed the Google tracking code. Now, connecting ad accounts is the other thing that you want to do here. So if you have a Google account or a Google AdSense account, this is where you want to connect them. If you don't know what one of those are, then don't worry about it for now. I'm going to go through how to connect both of those right now. So I'm going to go back over to Google Analytics, and I'm actually going to click to a different property here. And let's say in this particular instance, I'll start with Google Ads. And let's say for this property, I want to connect to my Google AdWords account or Google Ads account. This is also for YouTube ads as well, or you're doing display advertising across the Google network. So I see here I've selected my property, Act Funnel, and then I'll come and click on Google Ads linking. This blurred out list here is all the different ad accounts that this particular account is linked to. And I'd go ahead and just check the box on which one I want to link to. So I want to link to this guy right here. And then I'm going to go ahead and click continue. You can rename your Google Ads account if you want. I personally don't recommend doing that because it can get really confusing. It's going to ask you if you want to link the site data, and you do. This will allow Google AdWords and Google Analytics to talk to each other, and it's going to make it a lot easier when you're creating custom audiences specifically for remarketing. So we're going to go ahead and turn that on, and then we'd go ahead and click link accounts. And if you're already doing a lot of Google Ads advertising, you may want to click these learn more links to see just how powerful this connection that you just made is. I'm going to skip that and go ahead and click done. And the next thing we're going to want to do is I'm going to go through linking an AdSense account. And this is important if you have a YouTube channel or you have a blog that you're running Google Ads on. You can always add more Google ad accounts later. Personally, I recommend just having one account linked to one Google Ads account. So I'm going to go over to this property, which we're going to do Jason Willing for this one. And I'm going to click on AdSense linking. And if there's an AdSense account connected to the Google account that you're already logged into, this can get really confusing if you have multiple Google accounts. It will automatically populate here, and you can just go ahead and click your AdSense account and click continue. Do the drop down for all site data. We don't want to be filtering our data when we're initially setting this up, and then we'll go ahead and click enable link. Of course, if AdSense is a big thing for you, then I'd go ahead and click on learn more to really dive into how you can use analytics to optimize your income with Google AdSense. I'm going to go ahead and click done. And that is all we need to do at the property level. So you're going to want to go through this process for every single website that you have and every single ad account that you have. Of course, if you have one ad account going to multiple websites, then you're most likely going to need to connect your Google Ads account to all of those different properties. Although, unless they're the same business, I would recommend setting up independent AdSense and Google ad accounts for each one of those properties if possible. Google doesn't always let you do that. So finally, we have the views. And the views is going to be where you're going to be spending the next 3 to 6 months of your time. This is really where you're going to spend a lot of time playing with different ways of calculating and manipulating your data. So there are a couple things we can do here. We're going to go through these relatively quickly, and in the next step, we'll go through goals in depth. So view settings are where you define collections of incoming data. So at the base level, you're going to have all site data, and you're going to have master, and then you're going to create a view for subdomains, and then you're going to have alpha and beta views. I know that it seems like a lot, but I promise you it's going to make a whole lot of sense in a second here when we dive in. Next, we have goals, and goals are major actions that people take on your site. So these should only be big steps. I've seen some analytics accounts where goals and events have been, and events we're not going to bother with right now. Goals and events, they're set up and you're tracking every single link. You're tracking someone adding something new, shopping cart. You're tracking how much they go through the checkout process or which blog posts they went into. Like, we don't need to do that. We need to track the major things, like someone opts into your email list, or someone makes a purchase, or maybe if you have a lot of traffic volume, then someone makes it to the shopping cart if you're having shopping cart abandonment problems. Then we have content filters. These are great if you have a content-rich site like a blog, and search engine marketing is a huge part. Like, organic traffic is a huge part of what you're doing. Segmenting based on content categories is a great way to go. This is something that's advanced that we're not going to dive too deep into, but if you have a lot of content on your site and you have a lot of organic traffic on your site, content filters is where you're going to want to spend your time understanding next after this tutorial. Finally, filters. And filters are great if you're doing a lot of paid traffic, because what filters allow you to do, as you'll see in a little bit here, is filter by what type of traffic is coming in. So we can create a view just for Facebook ads, just for Google ads, just for YouTube ads, just for Instagram ads. So it creates a very easy way for you or whoever's managing your ads to go in and see all of the site traffic from the lens of only one traffic source. So it's really, really nice if you're doing a lot of paid traffic. It's a very easy way to understand how visitors from a particular source interact on your site, as opposed to trying to make a bunch of different custom reports. And remember, there's a detailed table of contents in the description if I'm going too fast, or you need to rewind, or you want to skip ahead. So now we're going to start off with the view settings, and we're going to be taking a look at Act Funnel. Here is our property, and then view is where we're going to be for the rest of this particular section of this tutorial. Now, first off, you can come up here and create a new view. So you can come in here and give your view a name. Let's just call it Master, and then you go ahead and click Create View. What's important to note is the day you create this view is the day analytics starts collecting data. So that's why we really want to get this process going, so you start collecting the data. Now, by default, Google Analytics sets up a view called All Website Data. So this is going to be very, very important. If you haven't played with any of these, if you haven't made goals, if you haven't done content grouping, if you haven't done filters or channel settings or anything else, then we can go ahead and copy all website data to create our master view. If anything has been changed, I really mean it, if anything has been changed, then you're going to need to create new view and come in here and type in master and click create view. And this is because we need a view that is clean of everything and anything, any changes. So in this particular instance with this account, nothing's been changed from all website data. So I'm going to go ahead and click on view settings, and you can come up here to copy view. And when I copy view, I'm going to call this master. So now we have a view that's default to Google, all website data, and now we have a view that's master that is just a copy of that. And then moving forward, we're going to copy master. And the reason you want to set things up like this is if you wind up doing anything advanced, if you wind up adding any filters or anything that you know is going to apply to every single type of view that you put together, you make that modification to master. And then you use master to duplicate everything else that you're going to be doing. And this protects all website data. It's just an extra layer of protection to make sure you always have a view that is untouched, unfiltered, and just everything under the sun that you need to track. Now let's go ahead and go back to the slides really quick so we can kind of really dive into why these views are so important. So with your master view, what I'd recommend doing is setting up your major goals with your master view. So if you want to set up goals for tracking purchases, you want to set up a goal for a sign-up page or some part of your lead generation process, I think that's okay to add to your master view. As soon as you start creating filters or playing with subdomains, create a new view. And this is where beta and alpha comes in. So whenever you create a new view, you're going to want to call it beta and then whatever description you have. And the reason you want to call it beta is because you want to know that it's a temporary view that you're testing. You want to make sure that it's getting the right type of information. Then after a month or two, you can go back and change it to alpha. And then that way other people know, if you have anyone else going in, and know for yourself which ones are being tested to make sure that they're collecting data properly and which ones are done, and you can actually rely upon that data. So now let's go ahead and take a look at goals, content filters, and filters. Now filters are what you're going to actually want to use if you want subdomains, but we'll get to that in a second. So first up, we have goals. And because goals can apply to everything that you're working on across your site, it's okay to edit your master view. So we're still on master view here. And if you're familiar with any sort of conversion tracking with like what you do with Facebook or Google ads, you can come up here and click create new goal, and you can essentially define different things that happen on your site as a major goal that you want visitors to take. So it's a way to measure the performance of your site. We'll get more into this in the next section. Next, we have content grouping. If you're going to do anything with content grouping, the first thing you want to do is come up to master and click copy view. And I name this beta blog content groups version 1. So in this example, I'm going to group different content posts on my site. So I'm going to go ahead and click copy view. Now I have a view. Now, of course, you have a limit of 25 views, but you're barely ever going to get there. So then, now that I'm in beta, I'm going to go ahead and click content grouping. And now I can click create new content grouping. And you can see here that this is where things start to get a little bit advanced. You can add custom tracking to your site, which I highly recommend having an expert set that up for you. You can tell analytics a specific part of the URL to look out for. So if your blog is set up, it's blog / your category and then the name of the post. Like let's say for this instance, it's blog / team, which is super oversimplified. Most blogs don't work like this. Then it would know to group everything that was blog / teamwork / name of post. Then of course you wouldn't put the name of the post. You would just put this and it knows all of those belong together. Now you can make up to 4 of these groups, or you can come in here and define your page URL. So as you can see here, this is something that can be a huge headache and can take a lot of work if you're doing it by URL, which is why I recommend working with a professional. If this is really something you need to get these tracking codes on your site, on the particular pages that are necessary. So I'm going to go ahead and click cancel. Now, the other thing we can filter by is traffic. So let's say, for instance, we have a bunch of different traffic sources. Now, I'd go back and change this to beta - Facebook ads or Google ads, but we can come in here and add a filter. And there are a lot of different filter types, but let's go ahead and give it a filter name, Facebook advertising. And we're going to click on custom, and then we're going to click on include, and then we're going to select, there we go, referral, include, and we're going to type Facebook. Now, for simplicity's sake, don't click case sensitive, just enter Facebook lowercase. Everything we do in Google Analytics should be lowercase, and we can go ahead and click save. Now we have a view. This view, what it's going to do is it's only going to show us stuff that's coming from Facebook. But we want to make sure our Facebook campaigns are coming through as well. So we're going to go ahead and click on this, and we're going to click on I'm going to call this one medium. I should have called the other referral. And then we're going to go ahead and click on custom, include. Again, this is some advanced stuff. You don't have to do this the first time around. And we're going to click on campaign source. And campaign source is going to be lowercase Facebook. And this is going to matter when we get into UTM parameters a little later in this tutorial. And we're going to go ahead and click save. So now what's really cool is we have a view where everything inside, when we click this view and we go to our home page, all of this data, everything that we're looking at will only be showing us things from our Facebook pages and our Facebook advertising. So it's really cool where you can go through the entire reporting tools. Obviously, there's nothing here because we literally just set this view up, but you can go through everything and you automatically know all of this has come from Facebook. So it's a really easy way. Yes, you can do the same thing in your overview, but this is a really great way to segment your data and just know that, hey, you know what? I'm looking at Facebook right now. How do Facebook users, interact with my site? So I really like doing this for when you're running a lot of traffic. So that covers content grouping, which we briefly went over. And then that also covers filters. Now to wrap things up here in your view settings, if you have a subdomain, this is where you're going to change what the website's URL is so that Google Analytics knows that it should only be looking at your subdomain. And then of course you'd want to rename it. You call it beta, subdomain. And then with your subdomain, you wouldn't want to have content grouping or filters. You'd have your subdomain that's normal, and then you would duplicate your subdomain and then add your content grouping or filters as needed. So as you can see, it can get pretty granular, pretty convoluted and advanced pretty quick, but that is all you need to know when it comes to configuring your account. So a quick recap of this section. All we did is we went into account settings, we gave our account a name, we added people that we needed to at each level. When it came to our property settings, we made sure we only made one property for each domain that we have. We linked our Google Ads accounts, we linked our Adsense accounts if we had them. And then when it came to our views, we made sure that we duplicated all site data. If we hadn't made any changes in the past, or if we had made changes, we created an entirely new view and called it master. And then master is what we keep duplicating as we create more views. And you're only going to make a new view when you want to play with filters, content groupings, or you have a subdomain. If you're creating big overarching goals, you don't have to make a new view. You can add those goals to your master without running the risk of really screwing up any of your tracking. And so that's all there is to it, to the configuration part of your Google Analytics. You're now ready to start playing with goals. And tell Google Analytics what is important to us. The primary purpose of goal setting is to come to the table and say, hey, Analytics, I know you're collecting all of this data and it's just a jumbled mess of stuff. Here's why I want to collect it. Here's what I want people to do when they hit my site. Now, what's important with goals is that this is very high level stuff. We don't want to be tracking, how much of random blog post someone read or how much of a video someone completed, right? We want to be tracking major things. And I'm going to get into the two things that I believe you should set up right now before you kind of dive into your funnel or your sales or lead process and identify those big steps. But there's two that we can set up right off the bat. And of course, Google Analytics here, the goal setting is just about tracking performance, and it all ties into what is the desirable outcome you want to have happen on your site. So now let's go ahead and look at 3 steps of setting up a goal, and then we're going to dive straight into analytics and walk through how to actually put this goal into action. So you have 3 options when it comes to goals, and of course, this is under your view settings goals. Now, the first step is to choose your goal type. You're almost always going to choose custom. For your goal destination, for your goal description, we'll get into a common naming convention we like to use. And it's really important that, especially when you start making a lot of different goals, that all of the goals make sense. You don't want to just make up a naming convention every time you make a new goal. Then we have your ID slot, which is going to be automated, and your type is always going to be destination. Now, when it comes to setting goals via destination, you're going to really want to be looking at 2 different things. You're going to want to be setting up a goal for people who are leads, aka they enter their email and then they join your email list, or someone who makes a purchase. Those are the only 2 goals that I recommend you set up right now. You can set up a lot of other ones, but most of those other ones are going to take working with a developer to get the tracking to work properly. So with that, let's go ahead and jump over to analytics here. So I'm in my account, I'm at property JSON, and then I'm in my master view, right? So I'm not going to be modifying my all site data view. I only want to be modifying my master view here with these 2 goals. If I'm going to do more goals, I'm probably going to create a different view and add those goals there so it doesn't mess up my master view. So I'm going to go ahead and click on goals here, and it's going to load up, and I'm going to click create new goal. There are no goals set for this particular property yet. So you can see here there are templates here. We're going to go ahead and click custom. Remember, keep it simple. We want to keep it simple. I'm going to go ahead and click continue, and I have loaded up what I want to call it. So typically what you want to do is call for your name. You want to give it the action. So the action should be, purchase or sale. It should be register, sign up, and then whatever it relates to. In this particular instance, this is a free membership site. So I'm saying register Aspire Notebook. So I know this is what action did they take? They registered. What was it for? What does it pertain to? The free membership website, Aspire Notebook. Goal ID slot, analytics is automatically going to choose the next available one for you. So just leave that alone. Now you have all these different options, but this is where we're kind of 80-20 streamlining. We're only going to do destination. Duration and page sessions, unless you have a massive amount of traffic or you have some years of data, these really aren't going to be all that valuable to you. And then events is something where you're going to have to work with a developer to get events to fire based upon actions people take on your site. So we're going to keep it simple. Destination, click continue, and then this is where we're going to enter in the destination URL. So this is going to be the confirmation URL of someone signing up or the confirmation URL of someone going through the sales process. So I've got my confirmation URL here, and we don't need the actual domain. We just need everything that comes after the domain. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that, and I'm going to say equals to, drops in here. You do have the option of begins with. So if all of your confirmation pages are /confirmation, and then / something else, then you can do that. But generally, just to make sure that there's no tracking leaks, I do this for each individual confirmation page. So I'm going to leave it equals to regular expression. We're just not mess with that right now. Value, you have the option if all of your sales for this particular goal are the exact same dollar amount, then go ahead and you can enter in a dollar amount here. For this, there's no dollar amount because they're just getting something for free. Funnel is an advanced option where you can add multiple pages. Say they go to a landing page and then they go to a confirmation page. Then maybe there's a couple of follow-up sequences, or maybe you're trying to get them on a webinar and it's trying to map the entire sequence. Most of the time, this isn't really worth messing with when you're just getting started. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that off. Now, if this goal has been going on for a while, or you want to make sure that it's actually working, what you can do is you can click verify this goal. It only goes over the past 7 days. So I'm pretty sure this is going to say 0. Yes, 0. So if this was something that I'd been doing on my site for a while, then it would actually show a conversion rate here, and that would tell you that, hey, this goal is actually going to work. So if it's something that you've already set up and there are people going through it, and you click, verify and re-verify, and there's a 0 here, then you probably want to check your URL or the way you're doing destination. Maybe if you switch it to begins with, it might automatically work. Of course, in this instance, it shouldn't. That would mean something's broken, but you can kind of mess with that to make sure that it's actually working properly. In this instance, I know no one has gone through this in the past 7 days, so I can just go ahead and click save. And that's how you set up goals for your site. So again, going back to our slides here, we're really only going to be setting up our goals for new leads or a sale in the beginning. Most of the other kind of advanced things you can do, like pulling in transaction numbers, is something you're going to want to work with a developer on, or if you're comfortable with HTML, Google Analytics actually does provide a lot of resources on how to get more advanced and get more fancy with this. But for our purposes here, this is all we need to do to set up goals in our master view. And once we have those 2 or 3 goals in there, it's time for tracking. So this is actually something that's going to be happening outside of analytics. And the reason that this is important is there's a lot of traffic that's coming to your site that analytics doesn't know where it's coming from. And using the power of UTM parameters, we can actually set up all of our links to always tell Google Analytics exactly where they should categorize this new site visitor. So I'm going to jump over to analytics really quick. So I'm actually in acquisition, all traffic, source medium, and you'll see here number 4 is direct and none. Well, while there are some people who've come directly to your site, none means Google Analytics isn't quite sure where these people came from. And so what UTM parameters do is they tell Google Analytics, hey, this person's coming from Facebook. They clicked on an ad and it was ad number 3 or whatever. You can actually get that granular. I'll go through an example of how I actually like to use this for YouTube videos and YouTube traffic. But essentially, we want to minimize the number of visits or users that are put into direct and none, because really there aren't that many people typing in your URL. So 9 out of 10 times, most of this traffic is going to be coming from sources that we're not tracking properly. And a quick note as we dive into this, because I always forget to mention it, always use lowercase with everything we're about to do. So even if you see something uppercase on the slide, everything you do with UTM needs to be lowercase because it is case sensitive. It's extremely case sensitive. And so we always want to make sure that we're using the exact same case and wording every single time. So this is what a UTM parameter looks like, right? We have jasonwhaling.com/aspire-notebook/ like what is all this, right? So if we break it down, you can actually see we have a source, we have a medium, and we have a campaign, and then we skipped term for this one, and we have content. And of course, we'll go through each one of these in detail, but here essentially source is where's the traffic coming from, medium, what type of traffic is it? The campaign equals what's the campaign name, and then the content is the creative of whatever the source of the traffic was. In this particular instance, this is one of my YouTube channel pages. So this is telling Google Analytics that whoever clicks on this link is coming from one of our YouTube channel pages, and it's from a general campaign. So let's go through each one of these in detail, and you'll be able to see and also show you a free tool you can use to put these together relatively quickly that's offered by Google. So first is your website URL. Then we have the campaign source. These two are always required. So the campaign source is typically going to be something like Google, YouTube, Instagram. Where's the stuff coming from? Maybe it's you're doing an email list. This is another big thing. Please use this with all of your emails. Next, we have campaign medium. So this is where we define what type of traffic it is. Is it organic traffic? Is it from an affiliate? Is it a cost per click? Are we doing display? Is it from a newsletter? Is it from a particular funnel sequence? So these are just basic suggestions. You can always get more advanced and fancy if you'd like. Then next we have campaign, and this is where you're going to enter the name of the campaign this is coming from. I only recommend using this if you have standardized campaign names. So if you constantly change the naming of your campaigns, or you don't have a real good organization of the way you name your Facebook campaigns versus the way you name your AdWords campaigns or your organic campaigns, go ahead and just leave this blank. Really, when it comes to UTM parameters, blank is better than just like guessing or filling something random in. Then campaign turn, this only really is valuable if you're doing a lot of Google Ads advertising. And so if you're not exactly sure what a SCAG campaign is, then go ahead and just skip this altogether. Next, we have a campaign identifier for the type of creative. So this is something like on YouTube, I will identify what video sent people to the landing page. Or if we do a guest post, it's going to say which guest post it was. Or if we're doing a specific, ad test, maybe it's ad number 3 or it's ad number 4. This is where we get to tell Google Analytics specifically what ad or piece of content, this particular click came from. Now, this is something you can just go over to Google, type in UTM Parameter Builder, and you're going to be able to use this free tool. All you have to do is type in, fills it out, and then it gives you this nice, properly formatted, super confusing URL like what you saw earlier, and you'll be able to copy and paste it. So you'd probably want to use a link shortener like Bitly, or if you're on WordPress, use something like Pretty Links so that you're not pasting these super long URLs everywhere. But what's really nice is once you get into the habit of this, Google Analytics is going to be able to tell you exactly where traffic came from. And to show you just how powerful this can be, I'm going to go back into my analytics account and I'm going to show you how we can dive down this rabbit hole of that super long URL you saw earlier. So I'm in acquisition, all traffic, source and medium. Now, when you set up your campaign names, you're actually going to be able to just click on campaigns and click all campaigns, and you're going to be able to see a list of all your campaigns right here. So with the example I showed you earlier, AN General was the campaign that URL pertained to. So every time someone clicks on that specific link, it is attributed inside of Google Analytics to this particular campaign. But I want to show you kind of how the rabbit hole works. So I'm going to go back to all traffic, source and mediums. This is one of my favorite places to go. And I'm going to go to YouTube Organic because that's what we're looking at here. We're looking at YouTube videos. So I'm going to go ahead and click on YouTube Organic. And let's say I want to know how are those specific campaigns doing on YouTube. So each one of those campaigns represents a specific type of lead magnet that we have. So I can come in here, I'm source medium, so I'm only looking at organic YouTube traffic right now that I've told Analytics, this is organic YouTube traffic. I'll come in here and I'll click on advertising, and then I'll scroll down and I'll find, where's campaign? There we go, campaign. So I'm going to click on campaign, and now we're going to see this same list. So you see source medium YouTube, and then we see campaign. So these are all the different campaigns. I've created a new campaign, a different campaign for each lead magnet that we have. And now I can see which campaigns are generating the most traffic. You see, if I hadn't done this, all of this data would just be YouTube organic, right? All 190 visitors would just be YouTube organic, and I wouldn't know which campaign, is actually producing results or clicks. Now we can take this a step further because I've actually defined individual videos. So if I wanted to know, hey, which YouTube video is actually giving me the most traffic or organic clicks, we can come up here again, and this time we're going to go to advertising again, and we're going to click on add content. So I'm going to click on add content and go back so you're not confused. So add content, let's use the pointer. So add content is down here where we're saying what the creative actually is. And so here, now we have add content. We can see video M15. Now, obviously, I have a code for this. You can enter the name of the video if you'd like. Always do it in lowercase. So I can see that whatever video M15 is, I'd have to go look it up, has produced 82 clicks over the past 30 days. And now we can see a kind of path of, M15, I know this particular video resulted in this. Now, sadly, we can see that the goal we set up, nobody's actually opted in. So this would be an indication of 190 people have gone to this page and haven't signed up. That either means the page really sucks, or there's something wrong with the way I set up the goal. So I would go back and look at the goal, and I'd go back and look at my email list, and this is where you'd start to debug and figure out, hey, why am I not seeing anything? So this would be something I need to fix, because I saw signups earlier today. But anyway, this is just kind of the power of what UTM parameters allow you to do. They really allow you to figure out what is producing results. So if we were just to say, hey, I want to know what type of video gets me the most clicks to my website, I would make more videos like M15 and S19. So this is actually a sales funnel video, and this is actually a time blocking video. So I would make more types of those videos because I know whoever watches those videos is interested in clicking over to my website. And that's really where the power of UTM parameters come in, because it starts to tell you exactly what's working and what isn't. So something like M38 and B39, probably not going to bother too much making more types of those videos if the trend continues where they only get, a couple of clicks. And so that's all there is to it, to getting started and getting set up with UTM parameters. Again, make sure you go ahead and Google search UTM parameters. I'll leave a link in the description below to this free tool where you can put together your UTM parameters and tracking in a snap. And now it's time for the last step of our process and the last section of this tutorial, and that is analysis, where we transform all of this data that we're collecting into information that we can take action upon to improve our traffic and conversions. And when it comes to turning all of this data into information, there are 3 basic questions we want to ask ourselves, and this will really help us stay streamlined and focused when we're going into analytics and remove all of the overwhelm that can happen with all of the data that's available to us. And the 3 questions are: who are your customers? Where are they coming from? And how do you get more? That's it. That's really, at the end of the day, all we need analytics to help us figure out and tell us. Who are our customers, where they're coming from, and how can we get more? These 3 questions is everything we need in order to make analytics work for us. Now, this is something that we're going to be going through reports. So inside of reports, we have real time, we have audience, acquisition, behavior, and conversions. So if I jump over to analytics, when you're on your home screen, make sure you're looking at the proper view, and you can change your view by clicking up here. I'm on the master view. On the left-hand side, you can see we have home, real-time, audience, acquisition, behavior, and conversions. Now, we're not going to go through every single detail in here because really we just want to answer those 3 questions so we can get on with growing our business and improving our advertising or organic search campaigns. So what we have first is audience. And audience is going to help us figure out who our customers are, irrespective of what type of marketing strategies you're using right now. Next, the acquisition reports are going to answer the question of where visitors are coming from, where are your customers coming from. And finally, conversions after a month or so is going to help us with how do we get more? Of course, we just set up our conversions, so this isn't going to be as helpful right now. We're going to focus more on audience and acquisition, and in the future, conversions is going to be extremely helpful in helping you see which goals you set up in step number 3 are best contributing to your success. So first up, we have audience, and inside of audience, there are a lot of different options, but really here, we're just going to focus on 2. Age and gender, for obvious reasons, and then interests. Now, what's really cool about interests is that these audiences that we're about to go through are actually the exact same targeting options you have inside of Google Ads. So I'll get more into that in a second here. So let's jump over. We're at our home, and you can always click the home button to get here. And we're gonna go ahead and click on audience. Now I've already loaded it up, so you don't have to wait for it to load. And you click on an overview, and this will just kind of give you an overview of your site, but we wanna get some more details. So under audience, we're gonna go into demographics, and we're going to click on age. And here we're gonna be able to see the age ranges of people who are visiting our site. And what's really cool about all of these reports is once you have a couple goals set up, you'll see that there's a column over here where you're actually going to be able to choose the goal you want to see. So once data starts coming in for this goal that we made in the configuration step, we'll actually be able to see which age group it converts the most on the specific goal. Obviously, we just set it up, so there's no goal data for us to take a look at. The other place we want to look at is gender. Now, what's really cool is these age groups and these genders are going to help you across across all of your marketing. What's specific to Google, however, is interest. So if you're doing YouTube, Google Ads, search, display, Gmail, these are going to help you because under interest affinity categories, these categories are the exact same categories you have the ability to target inside of Google Ads with all of those advertising options that I just mentioned. Now, affinity audiences, really quickly, it just represents groups of people who are interested in a particular topic. So this is where Google is looking at someone's search traffic and online behavior and saying, you know what, they're probably a technology enthusiast, or they seem to be a value shopper. We have here, sports and fitness, or fitness buffs. And so these are just people who are generally interested in these topics. Now, what's also really cool is in market takes it a step further. And this is where Google's saying these people are in the market for this type of product or this type of service. So typically, targeting these types of audiences is going to be more expensive when you get into advertising. However, they're more likely to buy because they're actively engaged and looking for something to buy. Whereas affinity groups, they're just kind of generally interested in these things. In market segments are supposed to be the people who have a credit card in hand and they're browsing around looking for something to buy. They're trying to solve a problem. So that's really all you need to dive into when you're just getting started inside of your audience. And between these 4 reports, the in-market, the affinity, age, and gender, you're going to be good to go in understanding who your customers are. So once we know who your customers are, it's time to figure out where they're coming from. And for this, we're going to go into the acquisition reports. And we're going to look at all traffic, and we're going to look at channels and source medium. This, again, is a place where you can really get lost in terms of all the different options and dimensions. So we'll go through a little bit in the previous section with the UTM parameters. You saw how you could kind of dive in once you're using UTM parameters. But here, we're going to go over to, we're going to scroll down and click on acquisition. Again, I have it up in a different tab. And so this will just give you a quick overview. You can see channels just represents the type of traffic that's coming to your site. So if we go to all traffic channels, we can get a breakdown of the different types of traffic that's coming to your site. And what's really cool is you can click on this and get a secondary dimension. And I would highly recommend playing around with medium, referral path, source, and traffic type. Play around with these to see if they provide you something that's helpful, right? And since I don't know your business or what you're trying to do, this is acquisition for a secondary dimension is a great thing to play with to kind of pull out some more information from this particular page. If you're doing UTM parameters like we talked about, you're going to be able to see specific ad content that worked, a specific campaign or specific terms. So that's really cool. Now, my personal favorite is actually source medium, where you are actually going to get a more detailed breakdown of exactly the sources of where people are coming from. And of course, you'll recognize medium because that was part of your UTM parameter. So for instance here, we have 2 YouTubes, right? We have YouTube/referral, referral being the medium, versus YouTube/organic. So in this particular instance, YouTube/organic is a medium that I defined inside of my UTM parameter. So I know that all of this organic traffic is coming from links that I've put together, whereas YouTube referral, that is Google Analytics figuring out that people have come to my website from YouTube. And it's really cool because as we looked at in the UTM parameters part, I can click on this and really dive in to see specific videos that are driving traffic. So it's really a great tool to figure out where you should be spending more time, whether you're doing paid traffic or organic traffic. And a quick note on organic traffic, if you're a big blogger, you're doing a lot of SEO, I definitely recommend looking up how to connect Search Console. I won't get into that in this specific tutorial. And finally, we have conversions. And conversions is going to help us figure out how do we get more, and it's also going to help us figure out which conversions really matter the most. So as you can see here, all of the reports that we've been going through have had the ability to select an individual goal so you can see how a specific traffic source or how a specific age group or demographic responds to a goal that you've set up. When you come down to conversions, click on the last tab here, go to goal URLs, and once you have some data, this is actually going to start to list out all of the different goals that you have on your website. So this is a very easy way to compare how different goals are performing. Whereas the other reports, it's more about how's this traffic, looking at individual traffic sources and then individually going through all your goals. This is a great place to see how all your goals are performing across all of the data that's being collected on your site. So of course, I know I ran through this section particularly quickly, but there's just a lot in here, and I really want you to just focus on these 3 key areas when you're just getting started. It's going to help you pull out actionable information as quickly as possible. You can always dive back in and start playing with the other reporting, because when it comes to analysis and reporting, you really can't mess anything up. You can always hit the back button. You can always clear a particular filter or a particular way you've set up a report. So this is the part of Google Analytics that's fun, where you get to play around. You don't really have to worry about breaking anything, because you're just looking at different ways of viewing your data. And that is all there is to it, to analyzing all of your traffic. So, thank you for watching. I hope you found this video informative and actionable. If you did, and you're actually still watching this video right now, way to go. Very few people make it this far. Go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe for more digital marketing strategies and tactics just like the ones covered in this video. Over on my channel, I'm documenting the entire process of what it takes to be successful setting up a digital business from scratch, and of course, getting your Google Analytics set up, and YouTube ads and Google Tag Manager is just one small piece of that foundation that's ultimately going to lead to more traffic and sales as you begin to profit and scale in the future. So go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, comment below if you have any questions, and until the next video, keep building the business you love.